Bravo, Michael McCormack. The acting PM has finally found a spine and is speaking truth to the warriors of woke. Now, his words have caused an outrage, of course, mostly because they're actually true. You see, the modern media hates the truth. They'd rather gather the claims that support their own view of the world and those that comply with their colleagues' view so that they can gain a PC merit badge or something. It's kind of like the Boy Scouts for partisan political hacks. It works like this. If you echo your colleagues' thoughts and you report everything according to your feelings, then you can get invited to the next meeting of the Not the Facts Club. And if you're a really compliant little scout, you could even find yourself invited onto their ABC or maybe even laugh at your own BS on the project. But back to McCormack and his crimes against the media. He labelled the BLM movement a, and I quote, protest over race riots. Well, that got Amnesty International up in arms. But then again, aren't they always? Well, actually, no, they're not. They never seem to complain about Libya or China heading up the Human Rights Committee at the United Nations, but that's a story for another time. McCormack, though, he was technically wrong about BLM. They aren't a protest. They're a Marxist, subversive, race supremacist movement that inspires lootings and bashings, riots and murder. It actually should be renamed the Black Losers Movement. But undeterred by the snowflakes at Amnesty, McCormack doubled down on the truth.
Any form of violence, any form of protest that ends in death and destruction is abhorred. And, you know, I know this is very difficult for the United States as it goes through great change, but, you know, any form of protest, whether it's a protest over racial riots or indeed what we've seen on Capitol Hill in recent days, is condemned and is abhorred. It involves violence. It involves destruction of property. It involves deaths of people, and any violence of that form is condemned.
Well, those comments tipped off the sleepy opposition who insisted that speaking the truth was, and I quote, a stupendous and outrageous failure of leadership. Well, I'm prepared to give credit where credit is due. If anyone would know what the stupendous and outrageous failure of political leadership looks like, it's a Labor apparatchik. But of course that awoke another sewer stirrer. The Greens' outraged spokeshuman began by claiming McCormack was engaging in post-truth politics. A post-truth lecture from a group that thinks there's no biological difference between a male and a female? It all rings a little false to me. But McCormack, to his credit, wasn't for turning. Perhaps inspired by the useful idiots he was provoking, McCormack injected even more steel into his own spine. The fact is, there was violence, there was destruction, there was uninsured property that business owners then had to dig deep into their own pockets to rebuild, he said. But hang on, danger, danger, trigger warning, all lives matter. And on cue, the director of Human Rights Watch, yes, I'd never heard of them either, pops up. What a cheap, divisive and dangerous political stunt, he said. Well, unfortunately, that statement's actually accurate. Telling the truth is now divisive and dangerous, which leads the triggered lefties to pursue cheap political stunts. And the next day, the now increasingly popular McCormack dared to take a broadside at the lovies in the media. Facts sometimes are contentious, he said, and what you may think is right, someone else may think is completely untrue. And that's part of living in a democratic country. He doubled down again. Some of what my colleagues put up on Facebook is very much true, but the people on Twitter sphere, they don't always like it. You know, toughen up, I say. Well, I say to Michael McCormack, you should have added princess to the toughen up line, but that, of course, would have triggered a furious non-binary choose-your-own gender debate. One outrage at a time for the newly minted man of steel, Michael McCormack, is probably the wise course of action. But he even managed to rally the troops with National Senator and patriot Matt Canavan telling the gobsmacked morning hosts on television, on commercial television, the Black Lives Matter movement is a completely debased organisation in the United States, he said. They've been responsible for untold damage. It's good to know that common sense is contagious. It just takes one person with the guts to speak truth to the self-indulgent tripe of the illiberal media, and then we start to make a real difference. Now, the left have long known there is safety in numbers. It's time the right of the political spectrum did too. Stop trying to appease the people who will never work for you, never vote for you, and never give you a fair go. Every time you do, you're simply helping your political enemy. Instead, speak truth to power. And don't get all mealy-mouthed when hit with the confected outrage. Stick to your guns. Keep calling them out on the lies and the hypocrisy. And even if you don't win every battle, at least you'll be doing the country a favour. We need more of this from Michael McCormack and other political leaders. Let's hope his early example is a shape of things to come in 2021.